expect some people to be rolling in. I have someone that's going to be presenting with me. She'll be rolling in as soon as she manages her advisory group. But just really quickly to give you an oversight of what we're doing this morning is we are going to do an activity in just a moment. We're going to be using a program that's called Desmos. It's heavily used in grade 6. So a little insight into that and how that works and what kind of information you can get. Second thing is we will talk about some program details, just some oversight of our program in math, and I guess beyond. So it's not just middle school math, this is ASD-wide. Then you're going to be doing some math. I hope you came today ready to do some math. That is kind of the bulk of our time together. There are pencils on the table. There's paper there as well. All right, so I'm glad no one ran for the door. This is all good. Then introducing our team, just who we are as a middle school math department, and then questions at the end. I know that this is an important space. I can imagine that a lot of you came here with some questions already. So what I would encourage you to do is if you have a question that bubbles up, or if you came here with a question, please just write it down. I'm happy to collect them during the course of our session, and I can answer them, or you can kind of save them for the question period. But I will save 15 or more minutes for questions to make sure that we clarify whatever you need clarifying. Okay. As we are getting set up for the Minds On activity, and we do call it a Minds On activity in our classes as well. This is kind of like a warm-up, maybe more traditional term. I'm going to be passing out some work. I have this split up into 8th grade, 6th grade, and 7th grade. So I want to make sure that there is work representing all 3 grade levels, and I'm going to just put that on tables. All right. I would like to encourage some movement when we're doing math, so you're not sitting the entire time. Okay. So I'll just put some work on the tables, and then as we're going through, last year we tried to do kind of a set timer, but I think it was better if it was a little bit more casual. During that time, I would encourage you, take a look at what's available in 8th grade, take a look at what's available in 7th grade, and also 6th grade, okay? But as we're getting set up for this, I'll just kind of be passing those out, all right? It doesn't matter what grade your child's in. Again, hopefully this satisfies some curiosities as to, what type of math are they doing in middle school, okay? So, I'm going to switch to the next screen. You're going... Oh, yeah, sorry. That's where I should start. So my name is Matthew Charmella. I teach 7th grade math. At ASD, I've taught grade 6, grade 7, and grade 8. I've been teaching middle school math for 20 years, so I'm a career middle school math teacher, and I am the math department head, so that's why I'm here.
Can you team up with our table?
Maybe. I have to tell you, during these, I rarely, I don't answer questions all the time. I believe in that struggle. I think we all need to experience a little bit of struggle. So for this, I'm going to have you sign on to a Desmos activity. We kind of check this. If you can do it with a smartphone, it's fine. The small screen, I think you get like a little warning that pops up. But you can definitely use a small screen for this. And then you will be prompted with a code. So you can enter the code when it appears.
Wow, lots of you are already in. We've got 10 students in. If you're not in, here's the code that you're going to use to join.
Start activity?
Yeah, you can press start activity. I can see some of you have already started. All right, I'm going to give everybody just one more minute right now. So our Minds On today is asking, what are some things that you need to make a pizza? And this, to give you a little background, is a starter introducing us to our ratios unit. And every middle schooler, I would say at least 99, if not 100%, loves pizza, so it's a really great intro, a nice soft entry into thinking about ratios. So you'll notice on your screen, and this is a tool that we use in our math classrooms. In grade 6, it's the curriculum that we use, and in grade 7 and 8, we use it as a tool for learning for a variety of lessons. So right now the activity is paused. If we were in the classroom and we had students on their laptops, I would ask them to taco or quesadilla their laptops all the way closed, so we can get some engagement. So we can now take a look at everybody's responses all at the same time. So I see a lot of us are thinking, in order to make pizza, we need flour. We've got fruit on pizza. That's an interesting pizza. Tomato sauce, mozzarella, EVU. I can tell somebody watches Food Network. They use that little EVU abbreviation. Nobody's put any really controversial, other than fruit, ingredients. And our grade 6 students, a lot of controversial ingredients we saw were mushrooms and pineapple. It's a very fine line between whether you like pineapple on your pizza or not. Okay, so this kind of just gives us a little springboard into what we're going to be looking at. So the goal of this lesson is just to introduce ratios, thinking about how we can write ratios, how we can express ratios as mathematicians, and doing it through a fun lens of a pizza. Desmos is a platform that we use, and it allows us to completely innovate lessons and think of math in a different way. So it is really redefining the math experience for our students. It's not just taking a worksheet with 20 questions and now putting it on a computer. It really redefines what we're doing. I'm going to force everybody to the next slide. I just want to show you what you're going to do. So now you're going to create your own pizza, and you're going to use this pizza in the lesson to create different ratios around your pizza. So you can choose if you like a really cheesy pizza, you can add less cheese, you can add some pepperoni, tomato, mushroom, we even have pineapple for those of you who are more adventurous, okay? So I'm gonna move everybody onto that screen and unpause you, and go ahead, make your pizza. I'm gonna give you 1 minute. So we can see kind of just a beautiful spread of pizzas, and this is what my house looks like on a pizza night when we're out making pizzas in our garden. Let's see, any controversy? Oh, Samina. Let's see, who's Samina? Samina's got pineapple on her pizza. Anybody else with pineapple? Yes, Maggie. Who's Maggie? Maggie made pineapple pizza too. Excellent. The next question is going to ask you about your sauce. So I want you and your partner or group to work together and take a look at your pizzas and how much sauce you've used. So we've got how much sauce you've used for 1 pizza, and now we need to think about how many we need for 2 pizzas. Okay, this is a pretty low entry task, especially for our grade 6 students. They're coming to us with this knowledge from grades 4 and 5. Then we're going to dig a little bit deeper and think about how much cheese you might need for 3 pizzas. So now we know for 2 pizzas, now we need to think about 3 pizzas. A little bit more challenging. Then, you'd be surprised, what oven temperature should we use for 4 pizzas? Okay? And then we're going to think a bit more about doubling. So what sorts of things, if we were going to double, what would we be doubling? What would we not be doubling? Okay? I'm going to open up those slides and just give you guys a few moments to play around with that. So go ahead. Check in with your partners, take a look at your different pizzas and your different ratios. Raise your hand if you found finding how much sauce for 2 pizzas that was comfortable for you. Right? How would you explain that process? What did you do? Double. Okay, and almost all of our grade 6 students would say the same. Now, this one, and I can see we've got different answers, but again, that's because we've got different pizzas. You'll notice that there are some visual cues here. I'm going to anonymize this, so your names are hidden. You are now famous mathematicians. So that when we talk about mistakes, we can feel comfortable talking about it, and we're not talking about the specific student, we're talking about the mistake, the concept that is super common and we see often in our classrooms. So I can see here that one of our students, what happened when they entered how much cheese? Can you see that picture? What happened? Yeah, it's way too much cheese, right? And visually they can see that. So one thing about Desmos is that it's super visual and interactive. Who can explain a process that they used to figure out how much cheese you needed for 3 pizzas? What was your thinking? What's your name?
Sean.
Sean.
Hi.
Hi.
My process was determine the amount for 1 pizza and then apply it across.
Excellent. So you're thinking ahead to what we're going to be doing in 2 lessons where we're working with unit rate. That's awesome. Did anyone use a different process to get there?
So I did.
What's your name, sorry?
Samina.
Samina.
I didn't hear.
Oh, you're a pineapple fan?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm from New York too. So I did not hear properly what he said, but I divided and then multiplied.
Excellent. So dividing and multiplying, and you divided to find for one pizza as well. Some of our students, and are there any other ideas in here? No? Some of our students thought a little differently than you. Some of them figured out how much it was for one pizza and then actually just added that to 2 pizzas to get to 3 pizzas. Does that make sense? Yeah. So they kind of broke it down a little bit differently than how we might think. Other students I had said they multiplied to figure out how much it was for 6 pizzas and then divided it. Okay, so lots of interesting thinking kind of develops as we introduce this in just a really different way. And I don't want to take up too much of your time going through this, but I did want to show you something. So here is a slide that asks for our favorite mistake. One of the things that we do in the math classroom is justify our own thinking. So it's not just answer getting, like what we were used to when we were in the math classroom, but it's being able to explain your thinking, critique the thinking of others. It's really important that we embed those math practices in our lessons so that students are really capable to speak to the math that they're doing, because that's really what our 21st century skills are about. So this one here asks us to talk about your favorite mistake, and students often laugh when we say, what's your favorite mistake? Because they're like, why would a mistake be one of our favorite things? But we learn so much from it. So we've got here, Ella had too many tomatoes, and Caden had not enough tomatoes. So I just want to share with you, and this was taken from, they could be your own children. It's completely anonymized, but just some thinking that they had around it. So some of them explained it using multiplication and division. Some of them gave an answer saying to try to understand how much tomatoes are needed for one pizza. Again, thinking about that idea of unit rate, which is so important in our grade 6 and grade 7 classroom. And this student, I would ask them to think a little bit more. So how might we level up that explanation? So yes, it is important to figure out how much for one pizza, but then where do we go from there? And why is that so helpful to us to know how much for just one? So we are able to use this program to kind of highlight student thinking, student misconception, anonymize it to protect the identity of those who maybe made mistakes and are a little bit shy about it. And I think that's it. Thank you guys so much. I'm going to head back to my classroom.
This ties into our philosophy, and the philosophy and the transfer goals that I'm going to share next. This is not middle school specific, but this is school-wide. All right, so as you can see, this is a K-12 philosophy, so I'll give you a moment to read through this. As I read through this, I mean, a lot of this is what we hope to do, but one of the things that I love about this statement is challenge and inspires them to become passionate learners, creative thinkers who appreciate the utility, power, and beauty of mathematics. And I think a lot of us, you know, depending on our experience in the classroom, we may not refer to the beauty of mathematics. We'll support that a little bit later with the books that we have available as well. But really trying to shift the perspective of math from this is something that is robotic, this is something that's automatic, to something that is enjoyable, to something that is challenging, and hopefully inspirational. The transfer goals, which we're hoping for students to develop through K-12, how we give feedback on those in middle school. So when you get your child's report card in mathematics, their grades are split into 3 different sections. There's concepts and procedures, problem solving and modeling, and reasoning and communication. And so these closely relate to those transfer goals and what we're trying to do through the course of their career at ASD. Concepts and procedures is probably the one that you're most familiar with. This is our more traditional approach to mathematics, where we want to see if students can solve problems efficiently and accurately. And what I tell parents and what I tell students is kind of this is our old school math, right? This is what we all grew up with. This is what you know, I started teaching with. Is kind of, can you solve the problem? You know, it's solely based on accuracy. But then these other things that are really tied into our goal and our transfer goals is the problem solving and modeling. All right, solving problems that require an application of knowledge, so not just being able to remember the process, but being able to apply that knowledge to something that is unfamiliar, and then modeling that. Symbols, words, numbers and or symbols, pictures, graphs, to go through and try to solve an unfamiliar problem. And then the last one that'll pop back up in just a moment is the communication and reasoning. And this is what Kristen was talking about when she says, are you able to explain why? So not just being able to say, this is the answer, but can you explain why? Can you tell someone else, this is how I got it? But also the justification part. Is it correct? How do you know? And so being able to communicate that and also being able to explain the reasoning behind it. Now, these are things that are over the course of an entire year or 3 years. And so one of the things that we ask for students and for parents as well is to be patient through that process, because for some it's very different. Students that are coming in from different systems, maybe a more traditional system, maybe the focus is only on being able to solve problems with accuracy. Lots of students that are coming in from either a British curriculum or a French curriculum or something that has been more, or even an American system, the focus is here. So there's a bit of a learning curve here. But one of the reasons that we wanted you to go through a Desmos activity this morning is essentially it's a little bit of all of this, where you had to solve problems with accuracy. You had to kind of problem solve. I don't know how many of you came in thinking about pizza making today and its relationship to math. So applying that to something a little unfamiliar or new. And then the reasoning piece as well. All right, how did you do it? What was your thinking? And Sean was able to do that and say, well, I focused on one pizza and then I multiplied it out. Now, math. You came here to do math. So that's kind of our transition.
Middle school curriculum meeting, so.
Well, that's part of
You
it.
tricked me.
So, what I'm going to show, it's a bit of a picture. Do I have any skiers out there? Has anyone been skiing before? Once or twice is okay. So this may look familiar for those of you that ski. This is taken, I think, more tradition from the U.S. kind of trail system, but this is connected to the work that's in front of you. So what we try to do in all of our classes is have different level of work in the same classroom, because we have different level of learners. And we know that students are coming in from different places, students have different experiences in math, so we respond to that and offering different levels of work. We have the green level, so if you're a skier, this is me. I'm just getting the hang of it. My wife always likes to ski ahead of me. She's blue or black, and then she watches me, because when I started skiing, I would go really fast, fall, stand up. Really fast, fall, stand up. Really fast, fall, stand up. But through practice, and if I went skiing more often, I probably would be a little bit more confident in attacking those blue trails, where I could go a little bit faster, I could slow down, I could stop on my own without falling, I could steer and avoid people. And then with a lot of practice, I can probably move to the moon dance in this case, where I'm going down a very steep slope. Maybe there's moguls, maybe there's trees on the trail, but this is kind of the model that we follow with our work, okay? Whether you are just getting the hang of the concept, whether you are feeling confident, yes, I think I'm really good, can I test myself, or ready, or if you are ready for more. The important thing is none of these things are permanent. So you don't walk into the class and say, I'm a green level student, and I'm always going to be a green level student. So the work that you see in front of you, this is made available to all students all the time. So if you take a look at the work, because they are from different grade levels, so I just want to walk you through what to look for and then give you some time for practice. But you should, at the tops of the pages, you should see the levels indicated green, blue, and black. If you are at an 8th grade table, there's a section where it says all, and then there's blue and black. And then in grade 6, at the very top. Now, there are solutions included. So if you want to check your solutions, you definitely can. And what I will do, every table, I try to put the grade level work. What I would encourage you is try to get up, move around, take a look, maybe find your child's grade. To see the other work that's available as well. I will be around if you need some help, but I want to give you maybe 10, 15 minutes, maybe 20, depending on our engagement, just to sit down and do some math. So this I'm gonna pause. I want to make sure that we have time for questions. Some people have asked a couple questions and they're really good, and I've asked them to kind of hold the question for the group because it is important for all of us to hear. But the one thing, the clarification, and maybe I wasn't clear at the beginning, was, are students getting this all at the same time? At times. At times we will provide kind of the variety of work, and students have to pick and choose. One of the questions was, how can I, what kind of push do we give? And sometimes we do encourage students, hey, you know what, I think you're really ready for the blue or the black. And so, knowing our students is really important in helping them make these choices. What I talk a lot about in my class is that Goldilocks approach. You don't want to do something too easy. You don't want to do something too difficult. So try to find, that comfortable challenge, right? Something where it's not just mindless activity. All right, something where you do have to stop and pause or ask a question of a neighbor or a friend. So at the beginning of the year, this is, kind of testing to see how students respond. But then as the year goes on, as we get to know our students better and better, then at times we do kind of push and provide a little bit more guidance. But again, I think what's important is, nothing's permanent. And we see changes in students day to day, week to week. I know you do at home. So it's kind of, these levels, it's not I'm a green student, I'm a blue student, I'm a black student. This is kind of, geometry, I'm really comfortable with geometry. Wow, look at myself, I'm working in the blue and the black, and before I was working in the green. Before I do questions, just to represent the team who's not here, you met Kristen a little bit earlier. So Kristen is teaching in grade 7 along with Mr. David Stone. And in grade 7, myself and Mr. Freeman. Mr. Freeman is also a science teacher. So maybe if you have a 7th grade child who has Mr. Freeman for science, it's not an error. He teaches both. And then in 8th grade, Mr. Stone also teaches grade 8 along with Ms. Titus. So this is kind of our team. I will leave this up during questions, just in case you need to jot down, anyone's name or anything else. But what questions do you have, either about the work that you were doing today, our program, transitions? These are kind of some of the questions that we expect to talk about. Yes, I know you had a couple that I told you to wait.
Yes. I'll just go start with the first one. So about practice. So my kid comes home, he came home once this semester with 4s, and it's very hard to convince him to do extra practice. He goes, no, I got it. And I just want to know what your take is on that.
Yeah, practice is important. I think, practice is something that in math, to be fluent in the skills, you have to practice. I think you highlighted the challenge. If you are, feel like you're doing well, then what's the motivation to practice? The nice thing is in 2023, there are tons of resources available for practice. So, there are lots of things connected to the classroom. In grades 7 and 8, we have IXL, which is a program. I would say it's a little bit more traditional in its setup, where you have a library from pre-kinder all the way to calculus, and there's hundreds of skills to practice. IXL also has what we call a diagnostic test, so a student can go through, and then it gives recommendations based on what they already know. Khan Academy does something very similar with the MAP testing scores. So Khan Academy can create programs based on how your child performed on MAP testing. And so some parents in your situation, they almost, it's not a parallel program, but there's always math that can be practiced. If you're a 7th grade parent, I always say never ask your child what math homework do you have. Ask your child, is there math you can be practicing? And for that, there's always yes. The answer is always yes. The Khan Academy, program that can be created, and Khan Academy was one of the first ones to do this. The only thing is you do need your child's either advisor or a math teacher to give you the breakdown of their MAP scores. So it's not their raw MAP score, it's how they performed in geometry, operations, algebra, thinking, statistics, and probability. So you need that breakdown, and then Khan Academy will create kind of a program in response to their scores.
So that would be us that would input
I
it?
mean,
the school would set it up for us?
It can be home. If students create a Khan Academy account, It is nice if they use their school account, because then if the teacher does create a class, then the teacher can monitor. And it's also,
I asked the math teacher for that.
you can ask the math teacher, yeah, for the scores, and then you can supplement that at home. The nice thing about the Khan Academy and that kind of program is when we move into 8th grade and the focus is really heavy on algebra, some parents and students are nervous about, well, next year if I go into geometry, am I going to be at a disadvantage? So we've had some parents where they kind of work through this Khan Academy, it used to be called MAPPers, I think it's just called MAP program now, but they really focus on the geometry. Khan Academy, for those that are familiar, has been around, decades. But the nice thing is Khan Academy has different types of questions. The problem banks in Khan Academy are small. So a child who may be resistant to practice, you can say, go on and do this one problem set. The problem sets are anywhere from 4 questions to 8 questions. So it's really kind of a small chunk of practice. You can even do the same problem set twice, and Khan Academy has a massive library, so they do the same one twice and it's different questions each time.
And what is your take, because I know when I went to 7th grade back to school night, I feel like I understood that we're doing more paperwork, because I always felt like it was really important, pencil and paper, and I thought that was the focus this year.
In 7th grade, we have multiple resources. At the start of the year, we are working heavily on paper pencil, because in the course of this year in grade 7, it's important for students to be able to organize their work as we get into more complex processes, and as they move into 8th grade, the skill of keeping track of your work and organization is really, really important. And so we value kind of them being able to do that on
But
paper.
extra practice, Khan Academy, and all the stuff that you mentioned is good.
Yeah, and I mean, reaching out to any, this is I asked you to share because this is a very realistic problem. And I think, reaching out to the teacher and what they recommend. I mean, 7th grade, yeah, I would recommend there's Khan Academy available, there's IXL. I've created kind of programs for students before using IXL, but I normally ask, what does the child prefer, and then what is realistic for the child? Because the tricky thing is we also don't want it to be a chore, and then they kind of turn and they don't enjoy it because, now it's something that they have to do. Remember, going back to our goal as a school of, we want to incorporate that inspiration, right? And for some, the inspiration comes from the challenge. So it's kind of figuring that out. That's one of the reasons that we have, those different levels.
Setting up the app, it's something that you do?
In Khan Academy.
Yeah.
Can-
It's not necessarily all the math teachers. Like if I go ask for my daughter's math teacher, would she help me to set it up?
Khan Academy is completely free for anyone.
Yeah.
When a student goes in to create an account in Khan Academy, using their school Gmail account, they can use. They can create, they can use Khan Academy without an account, but the advantage is that it keeps track of what they're doing. If they're creating kind of like a program, then it follows and it kind of has those recommendations each time they log in. But they can do Khan Academy without a teacher. So they can just do it as, an additional math practice tool.
So able to focus on their weaknesses.
The map scores specifically,
Yeah.
any teacher can access their map scores, but it's important that it's the breakdown of the score. And from my knowledge, that's not what you get on your report. You just get kind of their overall.
That's right.
Yeah. So you need the breakdown.
There's 4 written scores instead of 1.
Right. So you can get from the math teacher or from the advisor has that information, and they can give you the breakdown. Yes. Sorry. Here and then.
Is there any, like a practice map test for kids that they can go and, try to level up, or it's only on Khan Academy?
In NWEA, which is the site, there are practice or sample questions, but it's designed more to show the student the types of questions that are going to be asked. There is a practice test that we could administer. Do we still do this when students are coming in, like new students coming in?
It's a screener.
Survey, yeah. And this is because the MAP test is designed to figure out what's their growth over the course of an academic year, not to teach to the test.
And actually, we take a pretty good stand on that we don't. We're not trying to get better math scores. That's not a goal. The goal is MAP score gives us an unbiased look at how they grow, right? And any time I'm working with a student, if I'm grading, there is an amount of, I don't want to say bias, but I've worked with that student, I've worked, and now I see the work, right? Math gives us just a straight up, how we doing? And so that's a good checkpoint for us as a school, as it is for you. Never do we want to drive the RIT score, we want to drive the growth. And we drive the growth by doing exactly what all these math teachers do in the classroom, right? Because we're based on the same standards as the math test, so we're teaching the same.
It's just that it's a motivation for the kids to see, where are they, on which percentile, and so this way.
I try to make it, I tell them I use, it's like playing golf. It's only you against you, right? You have no one to blame if you hit that golf ball, right? Same with math testing. It's you versus you. How did you do against you last time? Okay, so motivation's there, but motivation means go to math class and pay attention and do all the work you need to do, and that growth will happen.
And this,
I purchased the package for a year that gave them a lot of access to math tests, but then the questions they got had nothing to do with
I
what
don't
they've
know
been
that-
practicing, and then I stopped it.
I've never heard of that, actually. I don't
Now
know
it's
that.
there. and
Does
yeah.
NWA produce it? I don't know
I think
that-
it's I just went there, I kept looking for how to have access to math tests, and they
Yeah.
gave me a lot of them. Like
It's
the
also-
same for Cat 4, so you can.
It's also a very, and Cat 4 too, Cat 4 is a thinking test, right? Like, those are not standardized tests in the way that you can prepare for them. That they're really not. They're adaptive. So
Yeah,
every
but
student that
it's
writes
good
math
to
writes a
try,
different.
one or two tests, just to get an idea what kind of questions you're getting. It's not gonna be the same question, but getting familiar with.
I would rather us do our learning here, and that's a data point that's helping us understand how we're growing, rather than the test driving. I don't want Mr. Charmella to tell me that he wants to do math in his class to get a math score up, because that becomes very narrow focused curriculum then, right? And that's not where we want to go. We want to explore the whole learner. Our goal is not to do well on the test, but it's the test. The test will, those results will come, and we do very well, right? Average, and high, 80% of our students is in average or above. 80% of the students, we do very well on that.
and just to go back to kind of this, and then there was a couple questions. The math test is kind of a third of our curriculum.
Right.
In terms of, I mean, yes, math test is measuring growth, but on the math test, the type of test is concepts and procedures. I mean, we can have another, I'm happy to run another talk Tuesday about math assessment, but there's other factors there. There's a confidence factor there, there's a challenging factor there. But math testing is kind of just measuring this. It's not testing, it doesn't give avenues for students to do this. Unfamiliar, absolutely. But ultimately, it's kind of more traditional. Question back here.
Yeah, back, this is the first year, my son is in 6th grade, and back, in New York, we used to have a book, Envision Math, which we used to follow. And here I see there is no, that we don't have any like a book or anything which, because in that one, now I don't sit with him that much, I'm like kind of left him because trying to make him independent as he's in 6th grade now.
Yeah.
But I see, like for me to look ahead and see what's coming up next.
Yeah.
I know, that I am not good at geometry, but does he have that same issue? So probably, making him work, on the side after he does, geometry is coming up next. Let's work on this because, that's the next one. I don't see anything like this over here. So how do you guys
Yeah.
solve this?
Yeah, no, this is a good question. It used to be where the curriculum was driven by a textbook, and now, there's been a shift. But I want to make sure it's not a secret either. And so, the 6th grade teachers are following a written curriculum, and I'm sure they'd be willing to share with you kind of, that map of the year so you know what's coming next. Whether it is posted in Schoology, I know at times teachers have that overall curriculum.
I mean, yeah, she does send us an email of the whole thing, at one time. But it's like the next lesson,
Yeah.
like the next one just coming up.
Yep.
Like that type of,
Yeah.
And then it's a good thing, that we always used IXL back home and always used Khan Academy. So, we're very familiar with that and very happy with it also. But at the same time, how the level goes up every time in IXL, and there's a point where the kid is like stuck,
Yeah.
and then, we need to figure out, okay, how to go on the next one.
Yeah.
And the textbook actually helps us because, you know, it gives us a breakdown of everything.
Yeah. Yeah, and IXL does actually do that as well. Whether there's a problem, it's an example, and they actually have videos embedded in IXL as well. So,
Videos and that?
yeah, now they do, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, up at the top. So I think more and more of the resources you'll see are kind of taking that traditional model of a textbook, the learning by examples, which here is important. But this is one of the other reasons that what you have in front of you is that solutions page. So most oftentimes, we do provide solutions to support not only the student, but also parent as well. So it is not just this mystery.
And, sorry.
It's okay.
Just, you know, like we used to follow Common Core. Do you guys also follow?
Yes, yeah. And there's a shift that's happening there, but yes. In the middle?
What would you say is the biggest change you've seen in like math from like 20 years ago to
Yeah.
now? Like where's the focus going?
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, good question. Everyone here has a smartphone, I can tell. Your smartphone can solve any complex equation faster than you can. So, you know, when we think about the type of math that we're doing, we used to learn this and memorize this and practice over and over. So we knew we had that algorithm, we had that process memorized, and a lot of the assessments assess that. Can you memorize this? There was some of this, applying it to different problems, right? Here's 100 problems that you do, and then there's some at the end where it's, okay, let me apply this to something a little bit different. Oh, I've never done this one before, whether it's the representation of the problem. But for me, that's the direction that it's going. This is something that, you know, starting to teach this in an IB system, when I kind of transitioned from a more traditional American curriculum to IB, this was so new to me. And it was something where I said, well, why are we doing this? You know, as a teacher, why are we doing this? You know, students should be able to solve the problems. But the more I was in a classroom and seeing students do this, I mean, this is my favorite thing to develop. Because this is what your smartphone cannot do. Right? This kind of sets us aside from being able to think about it analytically, being able to look at a data point and saying this is correct or this is incorrect and this is why. Or being able to collaborate with another person and saying, well, this is how I did it. This is one of the reasons that I talk about a calculator is not a magic machine. You don't punch numbers into a calculator, hit equals, and that's the answer, and that's the correct answer, because we need to be able to do this.
So would it be fair to say our old school math is not wrong, but if we're going to help them, we really need to focus on the reasoning and communication. So whatever method we learned, we just got to make sure that they're...
Yeah, and methods aside, methods are great. Parents tell me a lot, or students, hey, my parent taught me a different way of doing it. Can I do it this way? Absolutely. You know, math is a lot about strategies, and that really helps here. If you know how to solve a problem in 3 different ways, brilliant. But this comes in, you know, at home, this is where you can ask the questions. What type of problems did you solve today? How did you do it? How did you know if you were right or wrong? I think that's the evolution, and it's not, what we did was not wrong. But now there's just technology that can do it faster and more accurate than we ever can. And so what we bring to the table is kind of this, being able to think critically, being able to analyze, and being able to communicate it. Yes?
I think just building on what we've just heard, a couple of things that we face challenging at home, because I learned math the traditional old school style.
Yeah.
And I like to see a sequence of what I need to learn in the beginning in order to do an advanced math. I struggle when I look at the school curriculum. How do I follow that? So Khan Academy really helps because it gives you a sequence of topics before you go there. But I don't know how to do that when I look at the school, you know, process. I don't know how to apply that, because even if I look at, you know, test sheets, I look at the working sheets my daughter is doing, I can see what she's doing, but I can't see the flow. I can't see the sequence, if you will.
Yeah.
Any way we could do that differently?
Yeah, and I think what I'm hearing, and because I've heard it a couple times, is maybe going back and talking to the team about how we're making this visible. Because I think maybe what you're referring to is, how does that fit into a bigger picture? Is that what you're asking? And so I think that may be something that we can either put in a different place or make a little bit more transparent is, what is the direction that we're going? I do admit, though, that at times we need to be flexible and responsive to our students. but we can certainly put together something so it's a little bit more clear. Yeah. Before anyone else takes off, I do want to just take a moment to point out that we have lots of books today. Our librarian came over and she was excited to say, hey, you're doing a math talk. We have loads of books about math. And so, if you have time, I'm happy to stick around for a couple minutes if you still have questions, but I would encourage you, take a look at what's available. This is one of my favorite books I've read probably in the last 20 years. And it's Weapons of Math Destruction. I gave this to my father and he said this is like mind-blowing for him. So, this is something that was really powerful for me to read and read how does math fit into a much bigger picture. So this is a great one if you haven't read it. But there's books of all levels. There's fiction, there are nonfiction books as well. And Nadine is here, you can check out with her today, so you don't have to, copy down the title and then head over to the library. She is more than willing to kind of help you check those out from here today. If it's something you want to take home and read with the child, if it's something that you want to read, those are available. So as I kind of close today, I invite you to ask questions. If you still have them, I'm happy to stick around. If you have them for the teacher, please reach out to the teacher directly, and then please take a look at the math books we have available. But thank you all so much for coming. It's nice to see some familiar faces.